Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Embry. I am the Director of Marketing here at Travel Media Group. I want to first thank everyone for taking the time to join me on this webinar today. I'm very excited to share this presentation with you all. Now, at the end of this webinar, I will be providing my direct contact information in case you have any follow-up questions with the content that I'm going to be sharing today. But you can also use that chat feature, which is located right there in your toolbar, to type any sort of questions or feedback that you might have. I'm going to be responding to those personally following the conclusion of today. Also, be on the lookout since this presentation will feature an interactive poll. Would absolutely love your participation in it. So let's get started today and learn what to do and not to do when responding to guests on social media. And I want to start today's presentation by talking about how guests are using social media in 2021. Now, first, travelers use social media as a source of inspiration. Their friends and families are posting about their latest vacations, sharing beautiful images of the property that they've stayed at. Now, as a hotelier, you want to ensure that you have an array of attractive posts so that if a guest is scrolling through a tag for an area or an amenity, it's your property that is the most noticeable and likely to be clicked. Now, second, guests use social media to research more about the property. This is research that goes beyond just the simple Google. They want to see what other guests have chronicled during their time and stays with you. Guests will also look to your social media to find additional photos not found on an OTA or booking site. And finally, guests will use social media to read and write reviews. They'll use platforms like Facebook to write reviews based on their stay with you. And though not all these quote-unquote reviews may come in the form that you expect, on platforms like Instagram or Twitter, you may just get a direct mention or tag from a guest in their caption about their visit. These are more informal than reviews, but still, they have an impact on the first impression that you give to future guests. Now, in relation to direct messages and the real focus of today's webinar, guests may also reach out to you directly through a DM or direct message. Now, these messages are sent directly to your inbox on social media platforms, and they may feel very personal compared to the other lines of communication that you hold with guests. You may feel confused about the best way to respond to these guests, but today we're going to go over 3 different reasons why guests might reach out in this channel and what to do and not to do in each of the 3 situations. Now, in general, guests will reach out through direct message to you for, again, those 3 different reasons. One is they have a question. It could be a quick or complicated one, so you'll want to be ready for both. 2, they have an exceptionally good experience. Now, while most happy guests tend to leave good reviews or make positive public-facing social media posts, sometimes a guest may just want to reach out to you directly to share their experience, especially if it involves a specific employee of yours. And 3rd, they'll reach out when they've encountered a problem. Now, it's the first and last reasons that are the most common reasons in the hospitality industry that guests are going to be reaching out to you via your inbox. So let's go ahead and break down each one of these, starting with questions. Now, when a guest asks a question, you do want to obviously respond quickly. A guest with a question just might be looking for that last piece of information they need before making a booking decision. So you do not want to keep them waiting. You want to thank them for reaching out, give them the answer, and leave the door open if they need anything else. The chances are that guests will take the information and continue on with their day, but just in case, make it a habit to ask if they need anything else. And last, personalize the response. You're having a one-on-one conversation with a real guest, and users appreciate feeling seen and heard. The best way to do that is to personalize your message back to them. If your response warrants more than a sentence or 2, try to address them by using their display name if appropriate. Now, guests may ask questions in a variety of ways, but some may be less polite than others. A few tips in mind when frustrations may surround a question that a guest has. First, don't lose your temper. Responding to frustration with frustration only opens the door for guests to take photos of your conversation and spread them to their friends, or worse, post them publicly on their social media profile. Take a breath, respond politely. Do not give a vague response. If it's a question about pricing or policy, be as clear as possible. Guests will not like unwelcome surprises regarding any sort of fees, deposits, or policies that they might have missed along their booking journey. And last, do not dodge the question. If a guest asks about a COVID policy or something related to their general safety or something about the area, do your best to treat the situation delicately without talking around the point. But what if you're short on time and you know a guest can find more information somewhere else that's accessible to them? Redirecting a guest for answers is totally acceptable and encouraged, especially if the answer can be found on your website. So what are some ways you may want to redirect guests for information? Well, sending them to your website is useful if they have any questions about those policy fees, room layouts, or amenities. But if they have specific accommodation requests they need for their booking, ask them to call directly and leave a number for them to reach the front desk. Overall, you want to focus on the pathway to booking. Handling guest questions in a kind, comprehensive way will leave an incredible impression on your potential guests. In fact, it may even be that tipping point that convinces them to book a stay. After all, you have redirected them to a website where they can book with you online right away. And if you are nice and the property still fits their needs, why not book with you? Now, the second reason a guest is going to reach out via DM is when they have a compliment. Here's what to do if a guest reaches out with that compliment. One, obviously, thank them for staying. It shows your appreciation of their patronage and serves as a great universal opener. Encourage them to recommend you. Word of mouth is still the most powerful tool in the hospitality industry. And if their friends and families hear that a property is great, they'll be encouraged to stay with you in the future as well. And last, invite them back. Repeat guests build a sense of loyalty even without a specific loyalty program at the property. And happy guests can be guaranteed revenue for you later if you express how much you enjoyed having them and that you'd love to see them back at the property again. However, there are a few things to keep in mind and avoid doing when a guest compliments you. The first is ignore them. There are times in the hospitality industry that we have a tendency of letting positive reviews and comments from happy. Do not let this happen to you. Happy guests deserve our thanks just as much as unhappy guests deserve our attention and resolution. Do not repost their comments without permission. While their comments can be a valuable guest testimonial, you should always ask if it's okay with them first before reposting their comments publicly or to your hotel's social account. But every time you receive a compliment online, you should encourage that guest to revisit the hotel. The guests that love staying with you are your hotel's greatest champions, and treating them as such will make them feel happy that they left the comment, and it'll inspire other guests to book with you. It's a win-win situation that you don't want to lose out on. Now, the last area of DMs that we're going to discuss today is when a guest has a problem with you. And these high-tension situations require a level of calmness to respond effectively and efficiently. You'll want to practice the following in every single one of these responses. Just like questions, every minute that a direct message goes unresponded when a guest has a problem, that guest frustration is building. You'll want to quell their concerns as soon as possible. Be polite and concise. There are strategies we'll discuss for you to take when you need to obtain a little bit more information from a frustrated guest. However, in the initial response, be as polite and as concise as you can. And last, personalize that response. Just like when the guest has a question, you'll want to personalize this reply. If a frustrated guest feels like your response to them is copy and pasted or automated, they'll only be more frustrated. It will be perceived as a lack of sincerity and care for your guests. As for what not to do, you'll notice it also mirrors some of the advice when guests have a question. And it starts with losing your temper. It can feel very personal when a guest storms into your direct messages and angrily tirades over misunderstandings and mistakes. You'll want to rush to defend your property and your staff, and that is totally understandable. However, you'll want to remain calm. In the event that you respond angrily, you'll only encourage that guest frustration. Remember, they came to resolve the situation, not to argue. So keep calm and do your best to remain polite and concise. Do not give a vague response. Personalization helps guests feel seen and heard, and being vague only makes a frustrated guest feel like you don't know what you're talking about, or you'd rather just brush off the situation and move on. And finally, dodging the question. Just like being vague, dodging the question will only serve to leave the impression that you'd rather just not deal with the situation at all. If you need the guest to reach out, be specific about why and leave clear information for the guest to use. Now, when a guest situation is out of the ordinary or requires you to have personal information from the guest to resolve completely, ask them to reach out to you directly at their earliest convenience. This does two things. It leaves the ball in their court, and as long as they know exactly why you can't resolve through a DM, whether it's personal information that you can't solicit online or you need more details like a room number or a stay date, the guest should be understanding and willing to contact to resolve this issue. At the end of the day, social media is a place where its users, especially travelers, expect a level of speed and service across all communication platforms. So knowing when you receive a message is so critical. But for a lot of hotels, they have no way to manage when they receive these direct messages from travelers. And signing into your hotel's Facebook on a Tuesday and seeing an unread message from a traveler on a Friday asking you about your weekend availability just doesn't give off a bad impression. It costs you revenue. So that's where TMG's OneView can help. Our platform gives you access to not only Facebook, but Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn profiles, and you can set up push notifications so you'll never miss a direct message online again. With TMG OneView, you'll immediately be notified anytime your hotel is tagged and mentioned by a traveler on social media, alerted every time you receive a DM from a traveler or a guest. You'll be able to view all of your social posts and even schedule them through our social media calendar. And finally, every social package that we offer our hotel partners includes monthly social ad spend to ensure you are reaching and targeting your ideal customer. With TMG OneView, you'll be able to interact with all of your guests across every social platform in a new streamlined way, encouraging better conversations and happier guests. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll asking which hotels or group of hotels on this call would like to learn a little bit more about streamlining their messaging with travelers and guests over social media using TMG's OneView. So I'll go ahead and launch this poll, give everyone a quick minute to interact with it. If you missed some of the best practices and tips we had on today's webinar, we will be sending out a recording of this webinar, so you'll have it. But as always, as a reminder, you can find all of our educational webinar content on our YouTube page as well as our website at travelmediagroup.com. Be sure to hang on the line here. As soon as we finish this poll, I'll go ahead and give my direct contact information in case you have any other questions. But I'll just give everyone another quick second to go ahead and engage with this poll. And then I've got some very exciting news to share. Awesome. Okay, great. So as promised, here is my direct contact information as my email as well as my phone number. Next month, very excited to announce for the first time ever, we are going to be doing an interactive webinar, a live webinar. Myself and Jason Lee, our VP of Product and Development, and we are going to be doing reputation health checkups for hotels live. So if you're interested in getting your hotel looked at and potentially diagnosed for some reputation help, be sure to join. Visit our website at travelmediagroup.com. You can sign up for that webinar. You can see the timing right there. And then if you haven't already, please be sure to connect with us on LinkedIn at Travel Media Group. If you like some of these tips and best practices, we've got a whole bunch more for you for more insights and educational opportunities. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join me on this webinar today, and have a fantastic rest of your week.